On this episode of Game Shack, 5 reasons why the Mortal Kombat Gen 1 arcade game from Walmart is the best deal in 3/4 scale arcade gaming. Coming up next. Hey everybody, it's JDV here for EvilGeniusEntertainment.com. Thank you for stopping by the Game Shack. It really does mean a lot to us. We're in some new digs. I'll talk about that later in another episode. I want to jump right into it, but first I want to thank Mark Redout, who donated 15 bucks to the channel via Buy Me a Coffee. The information is down below if you'd like to help keep this channel going. And we spend all the money that we get from our YouTube channel, and anybody who donates money directly back into the channel, go ahead and do that below. Anyway, thank you, Mark, for helping us keep going and celebrating our 100th episode that we had a couple episodes ago. Okay, as I record this episode, the Gen 2 Legacy cab of Mortal Kombat has been hitting the streets, but I just picked up a Gen 1 cab from Walmart for the unbelievable price of $249. Now, of course, you might be able to find it cheaper in person at a Walmart or another type store, but online right now, as we speak, this is the cheapest price I have found for any 3/4 scale cabinet, period. The cheapest price for an Arcade1up. And in fact, you will see some of the partycades are almost as expensive now as this 3/4 scale Gen 1 Mortal Kombat. So I'm going to give you guys 5 reasons now why this is the greatest deal going, and the 5th reason is going to be that price tag. At $249, it offers a price low enough that if you were thinking about jumping into the hobby or thinking about picking up one of these cabs, well, now's a good time to do it, right? I mean, $249 is a pretty good price. Now, you do not get a marquee, and you do not have the molded coin door, and you do not get a riser with that. I'm going to do an episode pretty shortly after this showing you guys how you can upgrade this cab to make it every bit as good as any cab out there for less than the $500 that you would have to spend on a Gen 2 cab. Regardless, $249 is a pretty good deal any way you look at it, and for me it was something that I couldn't say no to for reasons that I'm going to get into next. The 4th reason why I think this is one of the best deals going in 3/4 scale arcade gaming is the monitor in the Mortal Kombat Gen 1 game is one of those BOE monitors. As reviews start to come in about the Gen 2 Mortal Kombat cab screens not being equal to the Gen 1 screen, it reminded me just how good the BOE screen is in the Gen 1 Mortal Kombat cab. And even at the $240 price that you get from Walmart is this same exact screen in all of these Gen 1 games, and they are BOE screen, and they are a beautiful screen. Now, 17 inches is a bit small for a 2-player game, in my opinion. It should be at least 19, but that aside, the screen itself is absolutely beautiful. You get those crushed, crispy blacks. The colors are vibrant. There's not a lot of tearing. I mean, it's just an excellent, technically really good screen, and it comes in this Mortal Kombat Gen 1 cab. And again, when you compare that to the Gen 2 Legacy cabs that are just now starting to get into people's hands, and some people are very upset because those monitors are not as good as the one you can get in this cab. Another reason why I think this cab is such a good deal is that the cab is a very good looking cab, particularly at this price point. You do get the 2-player controller setup, you get the faux coin door. Now it is only a 2D print, which I don't love. Now as far as this gap goes, it's because I've already raised up the controller deck using 4 bolts. That's a hack I will show you later on in my how to improve this game. But I like the artwork on the side. I actually like the artwork on this Gen 1 cab better than I do on the Gen 2 cab, which features that yellow dragon. I'm like, well, I mean, it's a stunning thing, but I don't know, I like seeing Raiden on the side of it. I think that's a very good looking bit of artwork there. And while it is not lit, I do like the way that marquee is. Now, I will be replacing this with a lit marquee, but you could certainly get away with it if you didn't want to put in a lit marquee. It is very striking machine. Fourth reason, and coming in at number 2 on my list, is that not only do I think it's a pretty good looking cab right out of the box, because it is a legacy cab, because it is a Mortal Kombat cab, an immensely popular title, you can get all sort of modifications from this from third parties. So you can get a control panel called the Boss that comes out but stays within the 19-inch frame. You can get a control panel that sits on the outside of this. You can get a lit marquee. You can get core doors for this. You can get completely different art if you want to. You can get risers for it. And now in my upcoming video, I'm going to show you how to make the cabinet this tall, all with an internal riser, so it all looks like one piece. So stay tuned for that. But for right now, I just have it on Apple boxes at about the approximate height that I want to have it. Now, in terms of play value, a buddy of mine were playing it, and so you do tend to stand off to the sides on this cab because of just how narrow it is. But the reality is it is very playable, and I think if you got an extra control deck, and that's something I'm going to be looking at installing myself, it would be eminently playable. And here's the thing, the wider you have the deck out, the harder it is to play a single player game. This cab is actually set up very nicely to play the single player games like Joust. Tapper is fantastic on this because you can actually play it the way that you were originally supposed to, using 2 joysticks, which is something you'd have a hard time doing if the control panel was wider than that. So depending on your usage, whether or not you're going to be playing with other people or not, the control panel might actually be perfect the way it is for you. But if it's not, you have lots of third-party options for switching that out. And that is a great thing if you are a modder or feel like upgrading this machine. And the number 1 reason, the most important reason really to get this game, is it's Mortal Kombat. One of the greatest, most famous video games of all time, and it's here in its original configuration, which is a fairly rare thing. I talk about this all the time, where unique control decks weigh more heavily in my mind in terms of what I'm willing to spend and invest in my arcade. So games like Tron have a unique control setup. T2, any driving game, a game like Outrun, those are games that have unique setups that are hard to emulate if you're trying to set up your own multi-cade or something like that. Here you don't have to. It is set up exactly the way the Mortal Kombat is supposed to be played. Yes, the controller deck is a little close together, but hey, the buttons are the way they're supposed to be, and that is a really awesome thing. Oh no, yeah, did I mention the fact that it has 3 Mortal Kombat games on there? Some great titles on here. Paperboy, which doesn't play great, but it is playable. Gauntlet, Tubin, all 3 Mortal Kombats, Wizard of War, Bubbles, Defender, Joust, Rampage, and Tapper. Some of the cool things you can do in this game, of course, is go in there and change the settings on these games. You can, at least on Ruber Tapper, you can put on scan lines on and off. I think you can do that for all 12 games. You can change difficulty, the amount of lives, and all that sort of thing. So that is a very cool feature on here. Almost all of the games are perfectly well emulated. You can pause the game, which is a really nice thing. Again, it's an underrated feature, and you don't get that on a lot of the older games. And then if you need to reset or rage quit or whatever, you can do that as well. The games for the most part are perfectly well emulated. There are 2 exceptions to that. In Joust, if you hit the yellow button there, you will fly like a bat out of heck. Oh no. I would get this cab just for Joust because it plays that well on there. It has Defender, and Defender actually plays pretty well on here. Does it play as good as the Partycade that I reviewed up here? No, it's not exactly the same, but because this deck is deeper, it is actually far more comfortable, for me anyway, to play Defender on this than it is on that Partycade. One of the cool things is that you can set up the joystick so that you can move back and forth without having to depend on the buttons as you normally would have to do. I find it actually a very playable version of this. One of the things you should know though is that in player 2 mode, let me go over here a little bit, is that the buttons it won't let you reverse the way you can with player one. So there is a little bit of oddity there. So if you're playing a two-player game, you have to use the button to go left or right as opposed to the joystick. But those are really the only two emulation problems I've seen on the game. Lastly, I'll say this. As the reviews of the Gen 2 Mortal Kombat cab come down the line, there's a lot of disappointment, both in terms of the way the screen looks and the fact that there is no lobby system, no spectator system, and the online play seems laggy in itself. And really, online play was the one really huge reason to get that cab, because you do get two other titles. I think it's Clax and maybe Rolling Thunder. I'm not sure what the other title is. But the reality is that online play was the reason for that Gen 2 cab, and it doesn't look like they did a spectacular job of it. Certainly not as good as a job as they did in the Big Blue cab. And of course, there's the rumors going around that there is, of course, going to be a Pro Line cab version of this. So really, this is the best bang for buck, not only in any kind of 3/4 scale cab, but if you are a Mortal Kombat fanatic and you don't yet have the title, this is a way to get into it and get the cab without having to spend $500 or God knows how much that Pro version is going to cost, or XL version, $800, $1,000. I mean, we don't know yet, but rumor is that's coming down the line too. All right, so that's it. If you like this sort of content, if you like this show, give me a thumbs up. It really does help this channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell if you have. Love each other. And until next time, guys, I'll see you in the Game Shack. Thank you, Mark. Mwah! Be sure to visit evilgeniusentertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.